You know, I feel for the police. No, really, I do. Between communicating with dispatch, watching out for traffic, operating their in-vehicle computers, and looking for minorities to punish for existing, they've got a lot on their plate. As a result of this, cops have about 1.8 times the number of vehicle collisions than the general public year to year, according to a study by the University of Iowa. Now, I personally believe a police officer's job should be to protect and serve their community, but they're not doing that if they're crashing into us all the time. So, I took matters into my own hands, and I stole their computers. This is the Datalux Tracer TF120. This is just one of the in-vehicle computers used by cops across the country. Checking the bottom part of the unit, we have a number of ports, including no less than 3 USB 2.0 ports, 2 USB 3.0 ports, 3 Ethernet ports, and I think there's a USB-A port or something like that. I don't know. There's also a USB port on the side. I believe this would have been used as some kind of a USB key to unlock the device only for certain users, or maybe it was for maintenance. It's anyone's guess, really. Also, in case you didn't notice, there's no video output ports here, so no direct capture off this thing. We're doing good old-fashioned point and shoot with our camera this time. That is, if we can even get it to run in the first place. You might notice the conspicuous lack of a standard power cable port anywhere. Well, actually, our power cable is right here on the bottom. Yeah, doesn't it look like one? This is what appears to be an 8-pin DIN cable. You'll frequently see these used on things like MIDI keyboards, for example. Never for power, though. When I stole this from the vehicle while the cop was in a Walmart McDonald's, I couldn't take the power cable with me because it was routed directly into the power of the vehicle. But I figured I'd probably find one elsewhere. It can't be that hard to find an 8-pin DIN to a standard AC adapter, right? Boy, let me tell you the hell I went through trying to find one of these. They don't exist anywhere on Earth. Also, Datalux doesn't produce these computers anymore, and from what I can tell, their customer service is completely non-existent now. All the numbers either don't work, or they go to a different company with agents that are annoyed about all the calls they get for Datalux. I even found a video on Datalux's official YouTube channel about plugging the cable in. The video I'm about to show you is 100% real, exactly as it appears on YouTube. What the hell was that? I'm not joking, that's what the video is. With the music and everything. Are they mocking me? Did they know? Jesus. Well, whatever the case may be, we're not having any luck with finding a cable for this, so I guess we have to take matters into our own hands. First though, we've got to get this thing open. Moving to the back, there's a number of screws on the edges to take out. Oh yeah, did you ever wonder about these little plates on the table? They're iron, so I can stick a magnetic screw holder to them. It's pretty cool, right? Anyway, some of the screws are longer than others, so take care not to switch them or you might end up piercing through something that you don't want to. From there, we'll turn the device back over and gently slide the front panel upwards. Gently is the operative word here. I recommend not completely removing the screen from the motherboard. There's one wire in particular, I think it's for the capacitive touchscreen, which if you're too forceful will just completely pop off the board, and it can only be reattached by soldering. Don't ask me why I know that. Now, down here at the bottom left, we've got our SSD. Not all Datalux units come with these, so you might have to source your own. Directly across from it, on the other side, we've got the aforementioned power port. It's time for me to learn a new skill. We're going to be making our own power cable. Now, I've never actually soldered before. I was never taught how to as I was growing up. However, I did watch this great video by the YouTube user WhereMe, which acts as a guide for teaching people how to solder. Hopefully it all works out. Going back to the exterior, I'm going to unscrew these two screws which hold the port in place, then use some pliers to pull it out. There's a zip tie on the inside that I'm going to quickly snip off, and then I'll pull the port out to give myself more room to work with. There's these 2 red and 2 black cables which correspond to positive and negative respectively. I'm going to cut the end of the port off now. There was also a little cable that goes from the port to the board. I have no idea what it's for, but apparently it doesn't do much of anything. Anyway, each red and black cable are braided together, so I'm going to unbraid them. After that, I'll take the two black cables and twist the copper inside them together and do the same for the two red cables. Now, I'm going to set up my soldering station. I'm using 6040 tin lead rosin core solder, which has flux inside it as recommended by Wermy. From my research, it looks like about 700 degrees is the recommended temperature, so that's what I set this to. While it's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and put some heat shrink tubing onto each of the wires so that I can slip them over the exposed copper once I'm done. Now for the power cord that we're actually using. Since these are normally inside vehicles, they actually just run off 12 volt power. We can see we have red and black cables just like on our computer, and now I just have to twist these together with the ones on the computer itself. Alright, time to actually solder. I'll remind you that this is my first time soldering, so please don't be mean. I barely know what I'm doing here. I place the end of the solder against the copper and use the soldering iron to gently melt it into place, binding the three wires together. I did this for both wires and, well, that's about it actually. It's easy, but it was a bit nerve-wracking. Unsurprisingly, I also don't know how to use a multimeter, so I don't really know if I've done this right until I've packed everything up and tried it out. I cleaned up the excess wiring, pulled the heat shrink tubing over the exposed wiring, and used a heat gun on my soldering station to shrink the tubing. Not the prettiest, but at least I'm not going to accidentally arc something or, I don't know, electrocute myself. Alright, moment of truth. Will it power on? Okay, it's scaring me. Doing a lot of flickering. Mission success! I can't describe to you how happy I was to see that logo pop up. I honestly couldn't believe that I actually did it right. It's so satisfying when you successfully did something without ever having been properly trained in doing so. From there, I put everything back together, screwed the front panel on, flipped it back over, and turned the unit on again. There's our lovely Windows 10 logo. So yeah, with that whole setup, obviously this computer was wiped. It's a bit of a shame. I would have loved to see a nice big arrest records folder in the documents or something, but no such luck. Well, hey, since this was all wiped anyway, we're not worried about losing files, so why not install Linux? What are we gonna go with this time? Well, last time I mentioned I have a couple of friends who are diehard Debian loyalists. I'll make an exception and be nice for once. Let's see what Debian's all about. Put my USB stick in and start installing. For Debian, you shouldn't have to disable Secure Boot in the BIOS, which is good because for what it's worth, I didn't see a Secure Boot option anywhere. Maybe Secure Boot just isn't a thing on this motherboard, but I don't know. For the record, I did try to install Arch and stuff got real funky. Maybe they just broke Arch install again though. Anyway, Debian. Kind of a weird installer. I guess I was expecting Calamares, but hey, whatever. It's not the first time I've used a distro with its own proprietary installation setup. Put in our host name, put in our plausibly deniable username, select our desktop environment. Yeah, just because I'll compromise on my morals and use Debian, that doesn't mean I'll do so for GNOME. But then we're off. Installing CPU X, we can take a look at what we're working with here. Ah, excellent. 2 cores, 4 threads, a perfect gaming specimen. Oh hey, 16 gigabytes of RAM, not too shabby. Now, I immediately noticed that the touchscreen is not working. Turns out, Debian does not install Xinput by default, which is actually the only time I've ever used a distro that does that. But hey, we can just install it, right? Well, not easily. I didn't notice it in the installer, but when I made my username, there wasn't an option to make my username a super user. That's another thing that seems to be pretty much a standard for every other distro that I've used. From what I've been told, if you don't give the root a password, then it'll default to making your first username a super user, but nothing actually says that. Well, fine, whatever. Shift-Alt F3 to access the terminal, sign in as root, and put in this stupid command into the terminal to add our username to the wheel group so we have super user access. Alright, back to our desktop environment. Install Xinput, and by writing Xinput list into our terminal, we can see our touchscreen device listed here. And yet, our touchscreen still isn't working. Except when I tried it later, it randomly was working, sort of. The detection was wrong. Wherever I touched resulted in the cursor being mirrored to the opposite side of the x-axis. So I did some research and tried running the Xinput calibrator tool. This supposedly helps you set up a touchscreen. Well, in theory, yeah. In practice, since the touchscreen was already messed up, it was detecting all my touches as misclicks. I can't say I'm impressed with this calibration tool. You'd think if I'm doing calibration, it should ignore anything from before and only take in my new inputs, you know? Now, you can adjust screen calibration stuff manually with something called a touch matrix. I spent a few hours figuring that out, and eventually I got it to actually stop being mirrored. Hooray! But there's another problem. It turns out the size of the touch matrix is smaller than my actual monitor resolution, so at the furthest reaches of the screen, it gets desynced and detects it inside of a smaller rectangle. Awesome. I spent a few more hours trying to figure out how to resolve this issue with the touch matrix and found absolutely nothing. Instead, I found a post on the Ask Ubuntu forums with someone using another device that also uses eGalax touchscreen, and after following not the top comment, but another comment written below by SR Blackbit, I was able to install the EG Touch drivers, install the tool, clear the parameters, and finally properly calibrate the touchscreen. Finally, working touchscreen. You know, I didn't even really particularly need touchscreen. I've just never had a computer that had one, and I wanted to get this one working. Alright, next we'll get Steam. I was actually pretty excited for this. I'm so used to Arch and typing everything in the terminal to install that I was kind of looking forward to having a convenient Discover application with everything I want on it again. Well, guess what? Steam isn't on there. Instead, I had to go to Steam Powered and click Install Steam as if I was on Windows, and then, lo and behold, it gave me a file that linked me to Discover. Why? Ugh, whatever. Just install Steam. I'm gonna go ahead and install a bunch of games. Now, I also wanted to install Mango HUD so that I could track performance. I did this in my last video if you recall. It was that little GUI at the top of each game. Well, I tried that, and for the life of me, I couldn't get it to work. It was fine on Arch. I could even add fonts and stuff using GOverlay and make it look however I wanted, no problem. No such luck here though. Everything is installed, it just refuses to show up. So I guess our playability ratings from the last video are just gonna go by feel rather than actual measurable metrics. You know, they say a first impression is worth everything. I can't say my impression of Debian is particularly positive so far. Part of Debian's claim to fame is that it's so widely supported that everything should be really easy. But ironically, in spite of a lot of the Arch user elitism, I can't help but feel like I'd be having a much easier time with everything if I was just using Arch instead. Whatever, let's get into some games. Again, we've got 2 cores and 4 threads, so we're going to be taking it a bit easy to start off with. First up, Doom. Yeah, I know, everything runs Doom. No surprises here, Doom runs great. God, I know I'm not breaking new ground here, but I've been replaying Doom for my own leisure recently, and can I just say sometimes a good game truly is timeless. If you somehow still haven't played Doom because you're a Zoomer or something, pick it up. Doom predates my birth too, it still rules. Next up, Half-Life. Yep, still perfect. My gameplay sure isn't, though. I didn't mention it last episode, but let me state for the record that for these videos, I'm using some of those free mice and keyboards they just toss in with a purchase, and boy do I feel it. It may sound like cope, It's not. I'll be honest and say I'm by no means a spectacular gamer, but good lord does this mouse in particular suck. Anyway, yeah, Half-Life is fine. Half-Life 2. We've got a bit of hitching, but for the most part it seems to me that we're averaging around 60. Maybe some hitches down into the 50s, I don't know. Maybe I'll be going with technically playable this time or... Oh. Okay. So our computer just shut down. Maybe we flew a little too close to the sun with Half-Life 2. We don't have a GPU after all. Honestly, I was surprised it ran as good as it did with just the CPU. Well, if we're contending with about 45 seconds of gameplay before the PC shuts itself down, I'll go ahead and say unplayable. Let's scale it back a bit. The Tomb Raider 1 through 3 Remastered Collection. Yeah, these games are from the 90s, however, they do have a lot more modern graphical enhancements on top of them. And the game is running perfect. Good to see. So for 3D games, it looks like about the late 90s is as far as we can go. Well, what about 2D? First up, Hollow Knight. Let's get past this menu, okay. Guess that's unplayable. Well, how about Limbo? I have Limbo on my phone, so it should be fine here. Start up Limbo and it's off. Wow, you know, truly this is the PC of all time. It takes binary very seriously. Either the computer is on or it's off. No game crashing allowed. Raw 50-50 chance of the system working. Hey, speaking of 50%, did you know that despite black people representing about 13.6% of the population in America, they make up about 53% of cases in which people were wrongfully convicted of a crime and exonerated according to the National Registry of Exonerations? I'm sure that's not indicative of any kind of systemic problems in the justice system, though. You heard me say the 13.6% thing and thought I was going to be racist, didn't you? Wrong, I'm actually woke. Anyway, looks like even 2D games are often a bust. I did get Vernal Edge working on it though. I know modern 2D games still have some complex shaders and stuff, but doesn't it just seem wrong that I can play a 3D game like Half-Life, but not Hollow Knight or Limbo? I can't even play web fishing. Guys, I can't even play web fishing on this thing. I can't even play web fishing! Oh well. Hey, I did get the touchscreen working, so I could play a game like Line. What? Line's a good game. It's a good game. Okay, so maybe in general, games from around the mid-2000s are out of the question, but what about emulation? Well, I used Rosalie's Mupin GUI and got Ocarina of Time running at least, so I guess whether it's a native game or emulation, the late 90s are about our cutoff for most games. Hey, this monitor's aspect ratio is even about right for this era of games, and hell, that's still a huge number of games that can be played on this. Well, that's about everything I tested. Being honest, gaming obviously isn't the best idea for this thing. It wasn't designed for it, and it shows. But that's not to say that there's not other uses for the TF-120. One person I found, Lil John 118th, is using it as a Cyberdeck telescope controller for astronomy, for instance. Another person, Save It for Parts, uses it as a Cyberdeck for legal satellite hacking. Both of these, I think, are infinitely cooler uses for this thing than what I'm doing here. Anyway, these things aren't even that hard to get your hands on. I mean, look, I already stole 3 of them directly out of cop cars. If you can solder, you can easily get one of these things set up for yourself. This one has a big crack on the screen. Silly cop, that's a computer, not your wife. And that's about everything
Mr. Kirk, this is Officer Brimstone, DPD. Please come to the door. We'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Here's that cinnamon plum for you.
Thank
Is
you.
that going to do it for you
Yep.
today? Okay, so.
I don't know what to do. Thank you for watching my video. God, if you enjoyed this, please leave a like and share it around with people. I might need the ad revenue for an upcoming legal defense. Thanks to Low John 118 for some pointers about getting power to the machines, and Wormy for the soldering tutorial. Also check out Save It for Parts. Everything will be in the description. So, okay. I just want to say that everything in this video is satire. And those machines being in my house is circumstantial evidence at best. You'd have to prove I'm the person that stole them, and I was using gloves when I grabbed it. Damn it! When I allegedly grabbed them. So there's no fingerprints anyway, and even if there was,